maybe democracy and the Democratic Party are alive and kicking. Maybe they are rejuvenated. We just had a huge day at the polls yesterday. And even what looks to be a loss in Florida is actually a silver lining win for the Democrats. I'll talk about that. But the top story, the lead story, Wisconsin's Supreme Court is in the hands of the liberals and the liberal thinking Democrats through 2028, which means voting rights and women's rights are going to be protected there. And Elon Musk, who blew $25 million, including handing out $1 million checks again to try to buy votes, they just turned that on him in political jujitsu and made him the villain. And the Wisconsin voters were animated by it more so than if it just became an anti-Trump vote or an anti-administration vote. It became an anti-Musk vote. And Musk is not going anywhere, and he is a path that the Democrats can use to regain power. Wisconsin, the Badger State, leading the way. I'm going to talk about Susan Crawford's big, huge win and the small losses for the Democrats in Florida here on Legal AF. Susan Crawford, a judge already, a circuit court judge in Wisconsin, lives in Madison with her 2 children and her husband. She is liberal, self-professed. If you live in Madison, Wisconsin, you're probably liberal. Look it up. She was running to replace a liberal justice who was retiring, decided not to seek re-election. She drew a Republican adversary, Brad Schimmel. Brad Schimmel did only marginally better than the last Republican who ran a couple of years ago, because this is not a place where Wisconsin wants to see a Republican right-wing MAGA. And the more that Crawford and the Democratic Party of Wisconsin went to the left and attacked Musk, the more Schimmel ran into the waiting arms of Donald Trump, wearing the MAGA hat, going full-blown MAGA, running the endorsement morning, noon, and night. The Democrats were smart in Wisconsin. They didn't make it about Trump. They made it about Musk, the big giant rat, and targeted him. And that's how Crawford did it too. So now she's going to the Wisconsin Supreme Court, and Brad Schimmel is not. She wiped him up, wiped the floor with him, 55%, 45%. That's a huge 10-point margin. And it's a total rejection of everything we hate about Elon Musk and Donald Trump. The $25 million being injected into that race, like a carpetbagger coming in with money, a carpet bag filled with money. Wisconsin doesn't like that. Democrats don't like that. Him handing out big checks for $1 million like he did in Pennsylvania, try to buy votes. Wisconsin doesn't like that. Democracy doesn't like that. And so now you have the results. You've got, and this is a win on a number of different levels. I love the fact that through 2028, that is a secure, liberal, moderate Supreme Court, meaning the state, the legislature may be leaning Republican. Wisconsin may have been one of the 7 battleground states that went for Trump. But the Supreme Court there, interpreting its Constitution, the Wisconsin Constitution, is going to be pro-women, pro-immigrant, pro-voter. And hopefully Susan Crawford, now Justice Crawford, is going to lead the way. Brad Schimmel hopefully will, whatever rock moved during the middle of the night he crawled out from under, he will go back in to that deep, dark hole. That'll teach him a lesson not to insult the intelligence of Wisconsin, and don't bring that noise here, that MAGA noise here. Now, let me switch gears for a minute, talk about Florida. You might be saying, Popok, how can you be so excited? I saw the headlines. They lost by 15 points apiece in these 2 major seats. Let's pump the brakes. The first district, which is the Gates seat. Remember him, Matt Gaetz? It's hard not to remember him. Accused, and we had a congressional House Ethics Committee that looked at whether he was a sex trafficker or not, and what they found there. And he decided to pull his hat out of the ring for the Attorney General position. Okay. But he did resign. I know there was a lot of speculation. I had a little bit of a battle with my Legal AF partner, Karen Freeman McNiffler. Did he resign? Did he not resign? Is he going to resign? Maybe he doesn't resign. Maybe he shows up. He gets sworn in. He said maybe, but he could withdraw. No, forget all that. He resigned. They ran a special election. And Jimmy Petronas, whoever that is, he won, and I'll give it to him, tip of the hat, 57%. And Gay Valent, 42%. So on paper, and it's very similar, eerily similar to the results in the 6th district in Florida, which was the Mike Waltz seat. Remember him? Mike Waltz, the soon to not be so the national security advisor for Donald Trump that added the Atlantic editor-in-chief onto the Signal chat to talk about bombing the Houthis. Remember that guy? Well, he was a congressperson before. So the 6th, Randy Fine got 56%. And Josh Weil, school teacher, got 43%. So again, you might be saying, it's 14 points, 15 points, Popok. Why are you so happy? Why? Because Donald Trump won both those districts by 30 points during a presidential election. Now look, special elections are kind of a weird duck. It gets people, especially when you're out of power, like the Democrats are out of power. We're out of power in the House, the Senate, and the federal side, the presidency, all 3 branches, and we're out of power in places like Florida. So in special elections, you have to mobilize a smaller group of people because less people come out during special elections. The turnout is less than a presidential general election every 4-year event. And so I don't want to directly compare apples and oranges in looking for that silver lining, because certainly more people came out for the presidential election. But we know Kamala had problems in Florida, as she did in the other 7 battleground states. The takeaway here is that the Florida Democrats were able to mobilize sufficiently in the time of Trump to cut the margin in half. And that's not a statistical aberrational thing. That is an event that just happened. And that can be used not to turn red Florida, which used to be purple and blue Florida, turn it blue again. But it's a reflection, maybe a little bit of a canary in the coal mine, of how Donald Trump is so unpopular and Elon Musk so unpopular in the first 75 days of this administration that it's starting to show up in the water supply of voting. And that's the takeaway. If they had won by 30 points, I'd be like, yeah. And of course, they're going to say they wiped the floor 15 points. And as I said before, it was a huge win for Susan Crawford to win by her 10 points. But when you're talking about Florida and where, the boss, the Il Duce, the leader of the fascist world, the Trumplandia, won by 30 points and his minions won by 15, that means they're not, they're not keeping the lead, if you know what I mean. So Florida Democrats, Wisconsin Democrats are showing what we have to do with the midterms. Now, midterms are usually less turnout than the general election, which is why that's not a bad thing that in a very similar special election, Florida Democrats did well. We got to do that same thing when the entire House is up for election in 2 years. We got to find a way to give the House back to the Democrats and balance power here, to find a way to give the Senate back to the Democrats to balance power here, and have the 2 houses, the 2 chambers of Congress turned over to the Democrats. And if you give me that, we'll make Donald Trump the lamest of lame duck presidents. You won't have to wake up in the middle of the night twitching about what the new executive order is, or what Supreme Court case has just been filed, or what, are we up to now 1,000 lawsuits or up to over 150 lawsuits? Give me the House, give me the Senate. I'll give you likely an impeachment of Donald Trump and a conviction and removal. If you needed a bigger brass ring than that, I don't know that it exists. So I'm going to continue to follow it all. Great success of the Badger State Democrats leading the way, showing that we're ready to put our hands back on power, get out of the doldrums. As I said, this is perfect timing for this Saturday. Hands off our democracy, hands off women, hands off immigrants, hands off our economy in the wrong way, hands off our Social Security, hands off mobilization, mass mobilization Saturday. Join it. We just saw what happens when people band together and join together in Wisconsin. Do the same thing here. Till my next report, you're here on Legal AF, and I'm Michael Popok. I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event, by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states, and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok Firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.